For many years, Anthony Quinn avoided speaking openly about Charles Bronson, even though the two men were often compared by audiences, critics, and Hollywood insiders. They were both seen as symbols of strength, toughness, and masculinity, yet they represented very different kinds of men. Quinn believed that silence sometimes spoke louder than words, and in his case, that silence was shaped by his own life story, his struggles, and his deep understanding of what it meant to survive in an unforgiving industry. To understand why Anthony Quinn finally reflected on Charles Bronson later in life, we must first understand who Anthony Quinn truly was, where he came from, and what shaped his character long before fame ever found him. Anthony Quinn was born Manuel Antonio Rodolfo Quinn, Oaxaca, on April 21, 1915, in Chihuahua, Mexico. His early life was marked by hardship, poverty, and constant movement. His father was of Mexican and Irish descent, and his mother was Mexican, and together they struggled to make a stable life for their family. When Quinn was still young, his family moved to Los Angeles, hoping for better opportunities, but instead they found even more struggle. Life in America was harsh for immigrant families, especially those with limited money and little social power. Young Anthony worked hard from an early age, taking on manual jobs such as construction work and even boxing, simply to help support his family. These early experiences shaped him deeply. They gave him a rough edge, but they also taught him discipline, endurance, and the value of survival. Quinn often said later in life that pain was his first teacher, and that lesson stayed with him forever. Unlike many actors who came from comfort or privilege, Quinn's strength was earned through struggle, and this made his presence on screen feel real and powerful. As a young man, Quinn was not originally planning to become an actor. His first passion was art and architecture. He studied under the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright, who saw something special in him. Wright recognized Quinn's expressive face, strong physical presence, and emotional intensity, and he encouraged him to consider acting as a serious path. This moment changed Quinn's life forever. When he entered Hollywood in the 1930s, he faced immediate obstacles. The industry at that time was deeply limited in how it viewed actors of color or those with ethnic backgrounds. Quinn was often given small, stereotypical roles, usually playing criminals, villains, or side characters defined only by their ethnicity. Many actors would have accepted these limits or given up entirely, but Quinn refused to be trapped. He studied acting seriously, worked constantly, and waited patiently for roles that allowed him to show real depth. This determination would later become one of the key differences between Quinn and Charles Bronson. While Bronson embraced silence and restraint, Quinn embraced expression and emotional risk. Quinn's breakthrough finally came in the early 1950s, when Hollywood could no longer ignore his talent. In 1952, he starred in Viva Zapata, playing Eufemio Zapata, the brother of revolutionary Emiliano Zapata. His performance was intense, emotional, and unforgettable, earning him his first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. This win was historic, as Quinn became the first Mexican-born actor to win an Oscar. The award did not change who he was, but it confirmed what he had always believed about himself, that his pain, his background, and his passion had value. He followed this success with another Oscar-winning performance in Lust for Life in 1956, where he portrayed painter Paul Gauguin. In that role, Quinn brought raw emotion, inner conflict, and artistic fire to the screen. Audiences did not just watch Gauguin. They felt him. This ability to connect deeply with emotion became Quinn's signature. His most famous role came in 1964 with Zorba the Greek. Playing Alexis Zorba, Quinn created a character that felt larger than life. Zorba was joyful, philosophical, reckless, and deeply human. He laughed loudly, loved fiercely, and lived without fear of failure. For many viewers, Zorba did not feel like a performance at all. He felt like Anthony Quinn himself. This role made Quinn a global icon and introduced him to a new generation of fans. Zorba represented a way of living fully, even in the face of pain and loss, and that idea would later influence how Quinn viewed other actors, including Charles Bronson. Throughout his career, Anthony Quinn appeared in more than 150 films across many countries and languages. He played religious figures such as Jesus Christ in La Strada, historical warriors like Auda Abu Tai in Lawrence of Arabia, and powerful figures like Barabbas in Barabbas. In each role, he brought dignity and complexity, even when the script did not fully demand it. Quinn believed that every character deserved humanity. He did not like flat or empty portrayals, and he often added emotional layers that were not written on the page. This approach sometimes caused tension with directors, but it also made his performances unforgettable. Beyond acting, Quinn was also a painter, sculptor, and writer. His artwork was shown in galleries around the world, and his books revealed a man who constantly questioned identity, purpose, and success. Quinn believed that creativity had no limits, and that true artists must explore every side of themselves. This belief stood in contrast to Charles Bronson's image as a man of few words and controlled emotion. While Quinn expressed his pain through art, writing, and performance, Bronson often expressed his through silence and physical presence. As Quinn grew older, he began to reflect more deeply on his life and the people he had encountered along the way. He recognized that Hollywood often created narrow definitions of masculinity. In his view, actors like Charles Bronson were turned into symbols, rather than allowed to be seen as complete human beings. Quinn understood this struggle well because he had lived it himself. He knew what it felt like to be reduced to an image, a stereotype, or a single trait. This understanding softened his judgment of Bronson and explained why he did not speak openly about him for so long. Quinn believed that public words carried weight and that careless statements could reduce a man's life to a headline. Instead, he chose reflection over reaction. When Quinn finally spoke about Bronson in later years, it was not with anger or rivalry, but with understanding. He saw Bronson as another survivor of poverty, another man shaped by hardship, who simply chose a different way to protect himself from the world. For Quinn, acting was about opening wounds so others could heal through them. For Bronson, acting was about control, strength, and emotional restraint. Both approaches came from pain, and both created legends. Anthony Quinn's long silence was not empty. It was filled with thought, experience, and empathy. Shaped by a lifetime of struggle, creativity, and self-discovery. As Anthony Quinn's career continued to grow, so did the complexity of his personal life, and this personal struggle played a major role in how he viewed other men in Hollywood, including Charles Bronson. Quinn was never a man who separated his art from his emotions. Everything he felt, love, anger, desire, regret, found its way into his work. This made him a powerful actor, but it also made him a deeply complicated human being. His personal life was filled with passion, contradictions, and mistakes that he later admitted with honesty. Quinn married actress Catherine DeMille in 1937, a relationship that connected him to the heart of Hollywood power. Catherine was the adopted daughter of Cecil B. DeMille, one of the most influential filmmakers of the era. For Quinn, who had grown up poor and marginalized, this marriage offered stability, opportunity, and entry into a world that had often kept him at a distance. Together, they had 5 children, and for many years, they appeared to be a solid Hollywood family. Catherine supported Quinn through the early years of his career, standing by him when he was still struggling for recognition and respect. However, as Quinn's fame increased, so did the tension in their marriage. Quinn was a man driven by intense desire and restless energy. He admitted later in life that he struggled with self-control and was often unfaithful. These actions caused deep pain to Catherine and slowly broke the trust between them. After nearly 3 decades together, their marriage ended in divorce in 1965. Quinn later described this period as one of deep regret, acknowledging that his success came at a high personal cost. This honesty is important because it reveals why Quinn felt a sense of understanding rather than judgment toward men like Charles Bronson. Quinn knew firsthand how public image could hide private struggle. In 1966, Quinn married Yolanda Adalori, an Italian costume designer who was much younger than him. This marriage brought a sense of renewal into his life. Yolanda introduced him to European culture and helped him balance his work between Hollywood and international cinema. They had 3 children together, and for a time, Quinn appeared committed to building a calmer family life. However, old patterns returned. Despite his love for Yolanda, Quinn continued to struggle with fidelity. During their marriage, he maintained a long-term relationship with Friedel Dunbar, with whom he had 2 children. This relationship existed alongside his marriage, creating emotional strain, secrecy, and eventual public controversy. Quinn never denied these actions. Instead, he admitted that he was driven by impulse and an endless hunger for emotional connection. This self-awareness deepened as he aged. He began to see himself not as a hero or villain, but as a flawed man, shaped by early deprivation and lifelong intensity. This perspective shaped how he thought about Charles Bronson. While Bronson was often portrayed as cold, silent, and emotionally distant, Quinn understood that this silence was not emptiness. To Quinn, silence was often a shield. Bronson, like Quinn, came from poverty and hardship. Born to immigrant parents and raised in difficult conditions, Bronson learned early that showing emotion could be dangerous. Strength, for him, meant control. Quinn respected this, even if he chose a different path. Where Quinn expressed pain through words, art, and emotional performances, Bronson expressed it through stillness, physical presence, and restraint. As Quinn grew older, he became increasingly reflective about masculinity and how Hollywood shaped it. He believed the industry often reduced men to simple ideas: the lover, the fighter, the strong, silent type. Quinn resisted this reduction throughout his career. He wanted his characters to feel alive, messy, and human. This sometimes put him at odds with studios that preferred simplicity. In contrast, Bronson's image fit neatly into Hollywood's idea of toughness. Audiences expected him to be quiet, violent, and unbreakable. Quinn believed this expectation trapped Bronson in a narrow space, limiting how deeply the public could understand him. When Quinn finally spoke about Bronson later in life, he did not criticize him. Instead, he spoke about how different paths can come from the same pain. He acknowledged that Bronson's strength was real, earned through hardship and discipline. At the same time, Quinn suggested that true strength could also be found in vulnerability, in allowing oneself to feel deeply and openly. These reflections were not meant to place one man above the other, but to show how survival takes many forms. As Quinn entered his later years, he continued to work, create art, and write. He also married Catherine Bender later in life, becoming a father